one of the major problems, for there are several. One of the many major problems with governing people is that of whom you get to do it, or rather of who manages to get people to let them do it to them. So to summarize, it is a well-known fact that those people who must want to rule people are ipso facto those least suited to do it. And to summarize the summary, anyone who is capable of getting themselves made president should on no account be allowed to do the job.
If you're watching this from a country that operates some form of democracy, then let me ask you a question. Are you completely happy with that system? And if you're not watching this from a country that operates some form of democracy, then let me ask you the same question. Are you completely happy with that system? I guess we must operate some form of governance to ensure our society functions, but do we really have to hand over all our power, our ability to be heard as an individual in all important matters? Important matters such as going to war, the raising of taxes, national surveillance, reduced public services, retirement age, etc. All topics that affect you personally. Well, let's stick with democracy for this part of the conversation, as that seems to be touted as the fairest form of governance by most of the planet. But is it? Is democracy the pinnacle of humanity's achievement in this area? Or is it a tired and out-of-date concept that only the tired and outdated politicians want to maintain? Well, judging by the survey statistics I researched, it appears very obvious that the overwhelming majority of people are far from happy with the current systems in place globally. In my book Global Free Society, I quote from a survey in 2013 carried out by Eurobarometer on behalf of the EU. And it states the following. 76% of the population surveyed tend not to trust the UK government. 68% of the population surveyed tend not to trust the UK Parliament. 68% of the population surveyed tend not to trust the European Union. This is unbelievable. Surely this is a wholesale vote of no confidence in our own elected governance. But what about other EU countries? The following figures are consolidated so they show an average, but 71% of the population surveyed tend not to trust their own country's government. 68% of the population surveyed tend not to trust their own national parliament. 60% of the population surveyed tend not to trust the European Union. The very best score is a miserly 40% approval, and that's the very best. So how have these numbers changed today? Well, unfortunately I couldn't find the same research updated, so this means we're not strictly comparing apples to apples, as the questions were asked slightly differently. But let us look at the new Ipsos Mori Veracity Index statistics from 2019 in the UK to gauge if this feeling of distrust still prevails. So, are you ready for this? Only 17% of the people surveyed trust government ministers to tell the truth. 17%. Politicians in general are even worse, just 14%. That's incredible. And when I look at all other European countries, the story is pretty much the same. An overwhelming feeling of distrust. The numbers fluctuate from the lowest trust in government being Croatia at 84.12% of the population to Luxembourg at 21.76%, showing no trust. It's really quite incredible that our poster child for trust in the very government we put in place to look after our interests still have two people in 10, that's 20% of the population that don't even trust them. If the statistics were agree with the government, then I could understand that. But trust? That has to be the very core of all our governing bodies. We must trust our government even if we don't agree with them, surely. The USA is a little different, with a lowly 17% trust rating according to the 2019 Pew Research Centre. Canada does a lot better. The 2019 Edelman Trust Barometer shows that 50% of people believe the current system is failing them. 50% believe the system is failing them, and that's a good result. So what's going on here? Clearly, not many of us are happy with what is thought to be the gold standard of fairness and representation, which is democracy. In humanity's early days, important decisions about the tribe's future were, I guess, made by the chief. But I would also make an educated guess that he took counsel from his tribe. He listened to their opinions, their suggestions for the benefit of all. And if he didn't, then the danger of being usurped would be very high. So not a good strategy for a long life. And as communities grew, it became more and more difficult to garner the opinion of all of the tribe, and at one point that became impossible. Henceforth, the career politician was born. Someone who solely devoted their time to the larger matters concerning the community. This meant the decisions would be made centrally on the behalf of the population. And that's pretty much how it's been ever since. But the world has changed. It's changed a lot since those days where communication over distance was a long and laborious task. But our form of government has not changed. We basically use the same outdated system first noted in 507 BCE. But we don't have these problems, these issues of distance now. Almost all the global population have access to communications that allow them to interact with anyone, anywhere on the planet, virtually. So I've made a bold statement in the title of this chapter, The End of Politics as We Know It. Well, let me explain in more detail before we continue. Because when I say the end of politics, I'm referring to the end of politics being a permanent position or role within our society. A job where you're part of one particular political party trying to achieve power to run the country or region as your own beliefs dictate. We no longer need to accept this old outdated system, and I now propose we now make these positions obsolete and take back the individual's power for good. We can now ask everyone in the region, country and even planet if necessary to participate as they see fit in the daily, weekly decisions that affect each and every one of us. We have the technology to do this easily, so why do we not reap the benefits of it? The system I talk about is called pure democracy. The definition of pure democracy. Democracy in which the power is exercised directly by the people rather than through representatives. And that's exactly what the Global Free Society will endeavour to make a reality. All major decisions of a local country and global importance will be voted on using technology via the internet. Practically everyone has a device so they can use to access the internet. And there are possibly hundreds of ways in which we could then structure this new system to allow this new concept to work. So I'll now share with you my ideas on how I believe this could work best, because we've got to start somewhere. So I also want to show you that not only is it possible to govern ourselves, but it's actually the only truly representative way. And as we shall now see, it has a myriad of advantages. The system I'm suggesting is a system of councils, all specialists in their particular field. So we need to start this example with the core council. The core council is the central hub of our new global system, but its job is not to make decisions on our behalf. Of course, daily decisions will need to be made, but the key decisions about anything that could have a direct effect on society and its members' lives would go through the voting process. So let me explain. Everything that happens within our society falls within the remit of one of these core categories. In my book, which is available as a free download, I go into a lot of detail explaining how each council and its subdivisions work. But obviously we don't have time to go through them here in detail, so let's quickly run through them just as an orientation. As you can see, the Industrial Council is quite wide, even though this is not a complete list. It's just an example at this stage. And we can see that there are many subcategories, all covering the various elements that are required to produce all the goods and services we require. And that could be anything from housing to cars to pharmaceuticals and clothing. And every council has, as you can see at the far right, a human resources division. obviously very important for a society that puts its people first. And then we move on to the Natural Resources Council. And here their job is to ensure we are managing our global natural resources and promoting the sustainable resources as a priority, something that the current global system does not do in any meaningful way and cannot do in its current guise. The Ecology Council's main role is to research all forms of sustainable practices to ensure that those findings are shared within our society and also out of our society. They're also responsible for managing pollution and even restoring areas of our planet to its former glory. So deforestation and our oceans would be a priority topic for this council. The Healthcare Council is to ensure society-wide healthcare at the very highest standards that we as a species can make available. The main focus is purely on getting quality healthcare to everyone, no monetary considerations whatsoever. And prevention will also be a huge focus, again something that the current system is inadequate at accomplishing in any meaningful way. The Leisure Council is there to ensure we have everything we need to enjoy our newly found free time. Don't forget, our leisure time and happiness is a main priority for our entire society. The Transport Council is quite straightforward. Their role will be to ensure we have the most accessible access to transport in all ways, from personal to public. A completely joined up system as opposed to the competing systems we see in place today globally. The Human Resources Council is there to support the individual as well as supporting the industry with the right workers with the right skill required by our global society to achieve all our goals. The Spiritual Council encompasses all religions and spiritual beliefs. They are there to ensure that the resources these various groups require are made available. Now, I've just listed the main religious groups, but I hope it's very obvious by now that the Global Free Society will support all religions and people's right to worship as they see fit. Within reason, of course, and that reason is as long as their activities do not impinge on anyone's freedoms or rights. The Law and Order Council are there to ensure that the laws that we the people have agreed to abide by and set in place as law are adhered to. They will also be responsible for all that administration, but remember, we the people will make the laws, not the council. The Military Council is there as a defence of our society, nothing more. And we will discuss this topic in a later presentation, but of course our military will be combined and work together sharing technologies and resources. The Agricultural Council is there to supply our food. And we will go through this example in more detail shortly, so let's move on to the final and possibly the most important council, the Facilitating Council. The Facilitating Council is the middleman, and they are there as the central hub to ensure all the councils communicate together and work efficiently, always with our society end goal in mind. They will also be responsible for measuring and reporting our society's progress in all areas. So now our second win. If, for example, there is thought to be a need to add fluoride to the water supply, the Core Council's responsibility is to present online all the findings that they've ascertained, the pros and cons of each side of the argument. We can then decide if we want this added or not. Imagine if we had had this power when the various governments of the world decided that they would spray chemicals such as barium, strontium and even aluminium into our atmosphere under the guise of weather modification. Shouldn't they have at least asked our permission first before they possibly compromised our health? So this will be the main role of the Core Council's research, to guide and present the facts unhindered by any concerns other than the continual development of our society. So now let's run through the structure and responsibilities of the Agricultural Council just as an example to get a better idea on the workings and the rough mechanics. Now, the names I've used for each each council are not what I would propose for the final naming, because I know they're not exactly catchy. but I've kept them quite simple using generic names to allow you to understand each division's role without having to go back and reference the name continually. And understanding the various divisions' role at a glance will be much easier this way. As we can see, our Agricultural Council is made up of 6 divisions in this example. In the real exercise, this number will be much greater. But the purposes of this example, I've just kept to the major core divisions as I see them today. Now, the first thing I need to make clear is that although the 6 divisions are under the umbrella title of the Agricultural Council, there is no single leader of the Agricultural Council, but there are leaders or directors of each specialisation within the division. So each and every division of the council will need to work with the other leaders or directors in that council. And any disputes within the division will be decided, as all disputes will be in the Global Free Society, by an equal and fair vote. So don't worry if you don't completely understand at this point, because that's just detail. And the reason that I add detail is because people always ask me for more detail to try and understand exactly how the system will work. Bear in mind, this is a blueprint. Each council will also be working to an overall main directive set by the population within the Global Free Society. But until we run this real time, we don't know what the directive will be. So let me share an example. Let's assume the directive of the Agricultural Council is as follows: to provide the very best nutritional and sustainable produce utilising production techniques that are beneficial and non-harmful to the human body as well as the environment. So here's our third win. The first subcategory handles crops, including forecasting. We now have a system that allows far more accurate forecasting because all our systems are centralised. Not just agriculture, but any aspect of our society that produces or even offers a service. So now we're far less likely to overproduce any goods and therefore reduce on wastage, power, pollution, etc. And their role will now be to produce crops in line with the society standards that we have all voted on. So if we all voted against GMO crops, then we simply would not utilise them. And here's the fourth win, and it's a big one. As we no longer have a monetary system to influence our decisions, we can finally get closer to the truth about certain farming issues. With no large petrochemical industries having a financial incentive to direct the agricultural world, we can consider other alternatives not motivated by profit. Resources and sustainability will now be the core factors, not money. Producing quality, healthy and nutritional food is now the key concern of the Agricultural Council. Profit is no longer a consideration. Think how the industry will change dramatically now. Now let's look at our fifth win and a major concern for many, which is animal welfare. Now, livestock is the second division, and the people running this important subcategory will be tasked with the role of ensuring that all animals in our society are raised using the most humane methods possible. Unless, of course, we vote that they do not. The great benefit of no longer having the monetary system in this area is that we can now prioritise the animal's health and welfare above profits. No longer will it be necessary to pump chemicals such as antibiotics into our livestock. And no longer do we have to allow caged hens just because that is the most cost-effective way to produce eggs. We will decide if that practice should be allowed to continue or not. And it will be the Agricultural Council's job to present the pros and cons of these types of practices and let the people decide. I know a lot of people would welcome that, and in my opinion, this is the only realistic way we will have to ensure animal welfare is at the front of our actions. Now, the next category is advisory. As this is the core council, their role will be to lead the industry on a global community level. So their role will be to ensure that we are all working together in the pursuance of our long-term plans. No regions will take any priority over another unless their current situation demands it. So again, it's equity, not equality. Human resources will mainly concentrate on three areas such as welfare, recruitment and allocation of personnel. Then we also have the procurement aspect, and I think these are all reasonably self-evident, so there's no need to go through these in any detail, but there is more info available in the free PDF downloadable book should you wish to. But there is one category, quality control, that I do want to quickly cover, as this represents the sixth major win just in this topic alone. So quality control covers several aspects, but the one I want to quickly detail is consumer feedback. So as I've said several times before, the Global Free Society is very much consumer focused. And that means the whole ethos of the society is to ensure you have access to the very best goods, technology and services we are able to produce collectively. But I guess there will be concerns from everyone, or from some people, about whether people will still be motivated to do their work to a high degree now that there's no financial incentive to drive us. Personally, I think the opposite would happen. People will be far more motivated than before, as now they know their efforts are for the wider society and not just for some rich banker or investor. And I realise not everyone will think like that, so we do need to have some safeguards in place, some assurance of receiving the quality back that we ourselves put into this society. And this will be one role of the quality control, to ensure that all the various councils are working and making the very best use of our resources. It also has another very significant role, and that is to feed back your opinions and recommendations to each and every council involved in shaping our products and services. This does not happen efficiently in the world today, but now we've centralised production, it's a very quick and easy to send consumer feedback direct to the designers and manufacturers. And that could be a simple app that allows feedback to be sent immediately from your society account. And this feedback will shape our production and technologies and aid bottom-up innovation as well as top-down innovation. This same format would then be applied to each council, obviously with some differences here and there due to the uniqueness of each division. I mean, we don't have time to go through all that, so let's just quickly cover a few significant points that I know you'll find interesting. Let's start with my favourite council, the Leisure Council. So we've already discussed that leisure time under our society will be of great importance, so much so that it appears in our vision statement. The personal pursuit of happiness and fulfilment will be our new focus through career choices as well as personal time to enjoy the fruits of our collective abundance. And why not? What is the point of life if we do not prioritise time to enjoy ourselves, to pursue whatever it is that excites us? And a 3-day working week is one of our short to medium term goals. So having facilities and resources available allowing us to enjoy our free time will be of the highest importance. Quality of life is our new global mantra, not financial profit. So let's look at what I suggest is the Leisure Council's what the Leisure Council's directive could be. The Leisure Council will provide all the resources possible to enable our society to flourish through the pursuit of activities and interests that engage and raise happiness throughout our society. Sounds good, right? A council whose goal is to ensure we have everything we need for our sports, our hobbies, our interests and our entertainment. What is not to like? But stop a moment. We have to also remember that we have a duty to be responsible with our consumption, and some goods that are produced are very high in resource. So I'm talking here things like jet skis, motorbikes, motorhomes, and even high resource products like top of the range mountain bikes. So should we just stop making these things? Of course not. But we do need to be sensible in how we distribute these. So can you imagine how many people suddenly would decide that they want a new motorhome, jet ski or hang glider if it was perceived as free? And it's not free, remember, you pay for it with your own time and effort. But how many of these items would then get used for a few weeks and then sit idly by in the garage? Same scenario for high-end items. So let's use the mountain bike example. How many people would want a new top-of-the-range, high-resource carbon fibre bike and then only to use it to go to the shops and back? Think of your own example. What hobby do you have that we would need to be more thoughtful on how we distribute high-resource items? So the solution that I offer is via the Leisure Council. And what I propose is that high-resource products are only distributed via clubs and associations. So the idea being that you would need to be a member to have access to these items. So you would need to prove your commitment and need for a higher end, more technical item. So when you join the mountain bike club, for example, you would be allocated a bike dependent upon your personal skill set. And as you progress, you would have access to better and more technical and more suitable bikes. And we're not saying here that you cannot have a mountain bike if you are not part of a club. Of course you can. But for the everyday person that may take his bike out less frequently, there will be a selection available that are of course high quality, but not over-engineered for the casual users. The other benefit of this system is that it's very social, and we are very social animals. So now apply this principle that we used on the mountain bikes to every hobby or interest that is resource rich. I mean, it could be archery, scuba diving, horse riding, and even snow sports. And of course, whatever you have at the point of ending the monetary system is yours. Nothing will be taken away from you. So you could have 20 years to buy your high-tech hardware regardless of your own ability or commitment to that activity. So some items may require an alternative solution, which personally I think works even better. So let's take motorbikes as an example. Now I love motorbikes, and I would have several in the garage if my wife would allow it. And I would want a sports bike, a tourer, a cafe racer, just to start. And I guess there's a lot of people like me. But I can only ride one bike at a time, right? So the solution here would be to still keep the club example, but make all the bikes or jet skis or motorhomes available for everyone that meets the criteria. And when I'm saying criteria, I'm talking experience and having the correct license if required. So it's just like a hire centre, but with more of a social aspect. And then we are not in the situation we have today where people buy these high price items and keep them in their garage and only occasionally use them. Now we get much better usage from each item, thus reducing our impact on our resources. And the great win is you now have the most amazing choice. Any variation you have ever wanted is now available for you for a day, for a week, for a month. Personally, I think I would be in heaven with this system. Huge choice, guaranteed quality and technology without the headache of ownership. And I don't see why personal ownership would be ruled out entirely anyway. We would always find a fair solution because that's what the Global Free Society is about. It's about equity, not equality. So the next council I want to touch on is the Law and Order Council. Remember, the free in the society name, Global Free Society, does not relate to free goods. And I hope that's very clear by now. You pay for the goods through your work, your efforts, and your own time. No, the free relates to freedom. Freedom of choice, freedom of movement, freedom from overreaching forms of governance. Freedoms in all senses. This then has to be ensured through our laws and our regional policing. As a single society, we cannot have a situation where something is legal in one place, yet if you take one step over an imaginary border, it is then illegal. We will cover this in much more detail under Strategy 5, but for now, let's just say that our laws, the enforcement and punishment need to be consistent throughout our global society. And these laws will be set through our system, our new system of pure democracy. So as a reminder, pure democracy is what we now call our system of governments. So now we have the hub of our global society. But we have to realise that each region, each country has its own specific needs and unique requirements. Not only must we accept this, we must encourage it. We really are not trying to build a characterless, communist and cookie-cutter type of society, I think that would be abhorrent. We must encourage diversity and expressionism at every single level. After all, isn't that exactly what being a human being is all about? To ensure this happens, I now want to present the next part of the society that ensures each region retains its own identity and recognises those little differences. The country and regional councils. This headless structure, first seen in the core council, is now replicated on a country level and also a regional level. The idea is to ensure all regions and people are represented fairly. This now means we have representation in each and every state, country, region up to the country level. And each group will communicate directly with the same group up and down the chain. Now, overall direction in line with our medium to long-term goals are passed down, and feedback and progress are passed up, and requests for additional support are also fed up and down the chain. It's a simple and easy to understand chain of information and global governance, and I hope that everyone should be able to comprehend that. I mean, personally, I think it's far more easier for the average person to understand than any of the current systems in place globally today. And don't forget, as these elements of our society are headless and driven by a system of pure democracy, it is now impossible for a single person or a group to assert their will over any decisions. That's extremely important. And that point brings us on to the next part, the Facilitating Council. The Facilitating Council has a pivotal and key role in the functioning of all councils and therefore our entire society. It is the centre of the hub, but unlike all the other councils, it has no powers as such, to which it can affect any changes or force its will on any council or division. It will be their responsibility to act as an intermediary between all the councils to ensure all plans, knowledge and technologies are communicated and shared. And this will act as the guardian and coordinator of the larger society plans, so short, medium and long term. And they will facilitate a joined up approach to all our activities, keeping all councils informed, focused and working together in unison to achieve our goals. So basically the middleman, but a critical part of the overall structure of the councils. Now, at the beginning I did say everyone will be able to vote on any topic. But I would like to introduce a caveat that I think is essential to ensure our decisions when voting are as informed as possible. And here it is. But first, remember, with greater powers and freedoms comes greater responsibility. So what I'm then proposing is that before anyone can vote, they must prove they understand all major points in the discussion. After all, if they don't understand all the points they are voting on, then why are they voting? How I see this working is that each council will prepare the debate online with each argument put forward, highlighting the pros and cons of each option. So exactly as we've discussed before. Once viewed, the voter must then answer a quick multiple choice to prove they fully understand what they are voting for or against. Surely that makes sense. Why should anyone be allowed to vote on any topic that they don't fully understand? And if voting is to become an intrinsic part of our society, then we have to ensure the process represents a quality approach. We must have an informed populace if we are to take responsibility for our own future. If you don't like that idea, then great. At least in a free society, utilising technology to execute pure democracy, you'll be able to express your opinion and have your vote. You'll be asked if you support the idea or not before it's actually made a reality, before it's put into effect or not. The alternative is as it is today. You relinquish your power to a complete stranger to make that decision for you. So which do you prefer? So what's the main benefit of governing ourselves in this way, using councils instead of the political systems we see in place today across most of the world? Well, hopefully you'll agree that there are many, but the first and possibly the most important is using a system of pure democracy, putting the power back into the hands of the people. And I can't think of any other fairer system than that, can you? Of course, you won't always be on the winning side of each vote, but I think most people will be far happier knowing the decision was made by fellow citizens with exactly the same to gain or lose as you. So the decision was made with you and your family's best interests at heart always. And the uncertainty of whether the decision made on your behalf was actually for the good of the people, the good of the politician, or the good of big corporations has gone. Now, how much easier would it be to accept the decision compared to what we have now? And there is another very positive side effect that I must also mention. The wider population will, I believe, be far more interested in the politics of their region, their country, and the planet than they are now. And my feeling is that the general apathy for politics that we see today is mainly down to the belief that a single voice is of no consequence. And in the current system today, I think that's generally true. Once you've placed your vote, that's it, job done, fingers crossed for the next 4 years. So this system will foster a much stronger sense of society, leading to a much happier, law-abiding and socially responsible population. And being able to choose our candidates at a local, country and global level will also go a long way in fostering a sense of global citizenship. And that is vital if we're to honestly aim to eradicate wars and build a global society based on mutual cooperation. And we have to all realise that we're all part of the same family, and cooperation is the only way we will survive and tackle the real issues that have plagued humanity for centuries. It also means that the people at the top of each council are there for their knowledge, their experience and expertise in that particular field. And it's always stunned me how we can put career politicians where they have absolutely no hands-on experience of that sector. And finally, we do not have to suffer that ridiculous situation. So hopefully I've achieved my goal here to demonstrate how out of date, how ineffective the current system of governance is globally compared to what it could be. And the final positive I want to leave you with is this. Many people have come up with great ideas and suggestions on how we could live on this planet in harmony, at peace, etc. But to my knowledge, no one has actually laid out a real nuts and bolts plan to actually make their ideas a reality. Well, this is where the Global Free Society is very different. So what I'm presenting to you is not just an ideology for you to ponder on and then forget. Because in the final presentation, I will explain to you exactly how we can make this a reality. How we can change the world in such a positive manner in your lifetime. So see you in the next presentation where I present the next very important strategy, education.